Yesterday, press conference, Dana White, breaking news. The Nevada State Athletic Commission changed the glove size for Conor versus Floyd to 8-ounce gloves. Couple of thoughts on this. Let's rewind to about 10 days ago when Floyd Mayweather called for this via Instagram. I took that as gamesmanship. I think all of you did too. None of us thought that he would want smaller gloves. I think you guys did too. I don't think I was the only one that thought this was a little social media back and forth. Remind you of the press conference. At one point, Floyd says to Conor, why don't we just do winner take all? At which point, Conor says, great, send over the contract. Now, of course they didn't mean that. Sure they didn't. And Floyd wasn't going to do that either. He wasn't going to take all of Conor's money. Conor damn sure wasn't going to risk it all. Why should he? Why should either one of them do that? So I chalked the gloves up to the same thing. I didn't think much more of it than that. All of a sudden, there's going to be a hearing, and they're really going to ask for this glove change. And the reason that I thought it was gamesmanship, I don't know who it favors. I would think that favors Conor. I don't think that it favors him enough to change the betting lines, but it did just that. It moved it from 5.5 to 1 to 3.5 to 1. In 1 hour, it moved it from 5.5 to 1 to 4.5 to 1. The stock market doesn't change that quickly. When there was talks of us and North Korea getting into it, the stock market did not change that quickly. So it was very relevant to a lot of people. It's relevant to me too. I don't know if it makes the world's biggest difference, but it definitely does favor someone. The question is who? And I think that it would be Conor. I think you're coming down closer to Conor's world, to what Conor's used to. So I was very surprised that Floyd asked for it. And just before the hearing, we saw a letter from the Association of Ringside Physicians, a group that I did not know existed, and they protested the change, but they protested it for very good reason. They said, unless this makes the fight safer, then we don't see any reason to do it. Well, that's a very mature stance by these guys. And I took that, a little conspiracy theory, but I thought, well, okay, somebody reached out to them to send the letter to make sure this rule doesn't change and we just have a little hype and marketing behind it. Everything's going to move on. Not what happened. Nevada State Athletic Commission said, yeah, they want 8-ounce gloves, do the 8-ounce gloves. Benefit to Floyd in this way. Floyd hits harder than Conor, regardless of what you guys believe you've seen, because Conor's knocking guys down and Floyd isn't. It's a totally different focus group. Conor's throwing those punches at guys that are not as skilled at dealing with them. Floyd punch much harder. That's the benefit to Floyd. However, and this is tremendous, as a guy that does both, I can just tell you, do MMA, go in and do the boxing as well. Those boxing gloves, they really help for defense. The positions you can put your hands, use what we call a shoulder block, use what we call a pull. You can get away with that stuff with the boxing glove. The defense, Rampage uses this a lot. He uses a very traditional boxing defense. You've seen him do it where he puts his hand, like the palm of his hand, almost to his ear, and that's how he blocks the hook. You don't see a lot of that in MMA. Rampage does it. I know you guys know him, so I use him as an example. You don't see a lot of that in MMA. That's a boxing defense. Because in MMA, you have the small glove. So when you throw that up to your ear, you're really not that protected. In boxing, that 16-ounce pillow will cover your entire head. Throw that up to your ear, it covers your cheekbones, your ear, your temple, side of your head. It just covers everything. So defensively, this does not favor Floyd. But he asked for it. He's a defensive fighter. Defense is paramount to him. I also don't know if he fully knows what he got into. And the reason I say that is Floyd does not spar in 8-ounce gloves. He has never been in the ring in 8-ounce gloves. He's now got a week and a day. That's just not a lot of time for this different glove size. Again, personalize this. I can tell you, when I go into a boxing room and put on boxing gloves, I can hit that guy a little easier. Only about 1/2 of an inch, maybe 1/4 inch. But all of a sudden, my range is 1/4 inch closer. And guys, it doesn't matter if it's a millimeter. If it misses, it misses, and if it lands, it lands. So you can talk about a half inch and that isn't much. I agree with you, it's not, but it is the difference. What's the old expression? Close only counts in horseshoes and hand grenades? Well, it's true. Throw a perfect punch. I throw a knockout punch. It doesn't matter if I miss the guy by a foot or if I miss the guy by a millimeter. It's a miss. And Floyd just doesn't have the experience in those, even in the gym. I assure you, one thing about the gym, those boxing guys, they spar much harder than we do in MMA. One of the differences, they wear bigger gloves, like 18 ounce, for example, way bigger than you'd fight in. Never smaller than 16. Never, never, never would it be smaller than 16, but up to 18. And they have the headgear. So they're a little more protected. So Floyd's not doing that. That's the relevance of the story. He's not in the gym in these gloves. Never, no way. Neither are his partners. So he's not used to seeing those punches cut him at him. A boxing session with a bigger glove on, you can see those punches a little better. It's only a little. I don't want to make as big a deal about this as other people are, and I don't want to make as big a deal about this as the gamblers are. I don't see it as that kind of an advantage. But I do see it as an advantage, and I see it as an advantage favoring Conor, and a disadvantage defensively, which is the style, for Floyd. But Floyd asked for it. The other part of this story, when these guys sat down and did negotiations, this wasn't as simple as Dana walking over to Floyd's house, walking over to Floyd's office, coming in, and saying, okay, here's the money, here's the opponent, here's the weight class. In MMA, it would be as simple as that. Here's your purse, here's the date, here's the weight class. It wasn't as simple. They broke all sorts of stuff down. There was all sorts of negotiations back and forth and stuff that MMA people go, that's crazy. In the world of boxing, that's just kind of how it's done. And one of those points, one of those subsections to the contract was very heavy into the gloves. 10-ounce gloves. No horsehair-made gloves, no Mexican-made gloves. So they thought this through. I don't know what horsehair, I wouldn't know a horsehair glove from a plastic-made glove. I want to know an Italian-made glove from a Mexican-made glove. But they do. That is what they do, and it was a big enough point to them to bring it up, negotiate it, and get it in writing, signed, dated, and notarized by both sides. It was a big deal to Floyd's camp. Fine. No problem. But then Floyd changed the deal and said, I want to go in 8-ouncers. And that is interesting. That is relevant. And I would love to know why. I don't know the why, but I do know what I'm suggesting for you guys is accurate. I know he does not spar in 8-ounce gloves. I know his partners do not spar with him in 8-ounce gloves. That's fact. So I don't know what advantage he thought he would have. I don't know. I know he's a smart guy when it comes to it. I know he's not going to do anything. People want to talk about, well, okay, Conor's coming to fight you. Are you then going to go to MMA? He doesn't even entertain it. No, I'm not going to MMA. No, this is what I do. This specifically is what I do. I'll take on anybody else in the world that thinks they're better than me at this. And this isn't as simple as Western boxing under the Queensberry rules. It also does come down to weight. It does come down to rounds. With Floyd, it does come down to venue. He likes to fight in Las Vegas. But it also comes down to glove size. And that was really exposed to us by the contract negotiations that were revealed during the second stop of the press tour. Conor brought it up. He's the one that said no horsehair-made gloves, no Mexican-made gloves, 10-ounce specifically. Said, I don't care. I didn't dispute any of it. Give me a mouthpiece. I'm good to go. And he's right. He's telling the truth. That wasn't tough talk. That's just how MMA works. Don't put any thought into that. We fight in 4-ounce gloves, but if they handed me 6-ouncers or 3-ounce, I wouldn't have the foggiest idea. You get in the locker room, the commission hands you the gloves, you put them on your hands. No more thought to it than that. For boxing guys, that might surprise you. That might go, well, hey, that's irresponsible. That's unprofessional. You should give some thought to the gloves. Maybe you should. I'm not weighing in on that one way or the other. I'm just telling you for MMA, we don't. From the small shows to the biggest ones. You don't think twice, don't think about it. You have the right under the rules, this might surprise you guys, under the rules, and MMA has this too, that the opposing corner can send in one representative to watch you tape your hands. In boxing, They always do it. Always. In MMA, you have that same statutory right. I've never had it done to me, and I've never done it to another guy. Clayton has never gone in and watched Anderson or Vanderlei or go through never watched an opponent wrap his hands, but they've also never sent anybody over to our locker room. So in boxing, the relevance is, in boxing, it is different. It is a bigger deal, and culturally and historically, it's the way it's done. Very big emphasis put on how you're going to wrap your hands, where the tape is allowed to go. Does it stop at the knuckles? Can it come over the knuckles? Very big emphasis. Monitored by the commission and watched by a representative of the opposing corner. So this was not a light decision. This was not done in the spirit of hail fellow, well met. This was not done in the spirit of bravery or courage or anything else by Floyd. Floyd sees something. Floyd's team sees something, and they wanted it changed. And it got changed. And with all the evidence I have, which isn't a lot. In fairness, I don't have a lot, do I? But all the evidence that I do have, I think he made a mistake. I don't think he made a fight-changing mistake, but I do think he made a mistake. And I don't understand it. And unless he is planning to come out like a Floyd we haven't seen in a meaningful period of time and not be the defensive master, but go on the offense, believe that he can get to the punch first, believe that he can make Conor react to him. And I think he does have those skills. I think he can do that. But why you would come into a fight of this magnitude with a different strategy than the one that you've implemented over the last decade plus, I'm going back to 2005. God, we're in 2017. It's a decade plus 2 years. It surprises me. I think that's all it does to me. I don't think I'm having the same effect as some guys, but it does surprise me. Because I think it's a miss. I think it's a miss by Floyd.